I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type, but baby, listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you, if you quit playing. Won't you take a chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk to me. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Look, see we vibing and you know it's true. Baby, what it do? Do for me and I'ma do for you. No doubt about it, Boosie, I'm a Midwest king. Looking for myself a queen. Ready to chase a dream with a dope self-esteem. You find it in all I know and that's for real. You get to shaking that ass on the floor and I see what's real. No disrespect, I just tell it like it is. Do you ever want some kids? What your ultimate goals? Maybe I can help with those. The mo was broke when he made you a blessing. You looking like a whole buffet and I need some seconds. You say you had promiscuous ways, that was back in the day. I'll be alive, I say I did it, that shit was a phase. So baby, take this journey with me. You can pick the time and place, this nigga isn't picky. Smile on your face, I know the deal. Sign and deliver after seal. I can see it in her eyes, this one right here for real. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type, but baby, listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you, if you quit playing. Won't you take a chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk, yeah. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Lady, you so far ahead of these others, just like a ship on the horizon. Picking up on your vibe, signal stronger than Verizon. All the thoughts that I've been contemplating, ain't no time for faking or debating. You the one, ain't no mistaking. Look, I see your swag different. Always carry yourself like you ready, you know the mission. I had to know you, I'm tempted. I can see why you timid. Hold up now, baby, listen. Just take that dance with me, I can show you that there's a difference. I'm locked in. I throw away my player ways because you pop in. A shooter always shoot a shot. With you by my side, I guarantee we'll reach the top. I put that on God and them, I give you all that I got. So baby, take this journey with me. You can pick the time and place, this nigga isn't picky. Smile on your face, I know the deal. Sign and deliver after seal. I can see it in her eyes, this one right here for real. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type, but baby, listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you, if you quit playing. Won't you take a chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk, yeah. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk to me.
Welcome to the Behind Them Sticks podcast, brought to you by TSWS Gaming.
Come and talk to me. Lennard Ray. Come on. Come and talk to me. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type, but baby, listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you, if you quit playing. Won't you take a chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk to me. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Look, see we vibing and you know it's true. Baby, what it do? Do for me and I'ma do for you. No doubt about it, Boosie, I'm a Midwest king. Looking for myself a queen. Ready to chase a dream with a dope self-esteem. You find it in all I know and that's for real. You get to shaking that ass on the floor and I see what's real. No disrespect, I just tell it like it is. Do you ever want some kids? What your ultimate goals? Maybe I can help with those. The mo was broke when he made you a blessing. You looking like a whole buffet and I need some seconds. You say you had promiscuous ways, that was back in the day. I'll be alive, I say I did it, that shit was a phase. So baby, take this journey with me. You can pick the time and place, this nigga isn't picky. Smile on your face, I know the deal. Sign and deliver after seal. I can see it in her eyes, this one right here for real. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type, but baby, listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you, if you quit playing. Won't you take a chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk, yeah. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Lady, you so far ahead of these others, just like a ship on the horizon. Picking up on your vibe, signal stronger than Verizon. All the thoughts that I've been contemplating, ain't no time for faking or debating. You the one, ain't no mistaking. Look, I see your swag different.
All right, sweet, and welcome back, everybody. Whoever is coming back for some seconds for today. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Behind Them Sticks with your boy Ham Solo 05 Gaming on the TSWS Gaming channel on YouTube. Thank you for coming back to those of you, and welcome to those that have not yet seen the episode that I made earlier with Maurice, the everything tester. That dude is super duper dope from Netherlands. But today I have a very special guest that I'm happy to bring to this episode today on this channel. He has previously worked at a few other places, but now has currently found himself on a brand new game studio that he's building from the ground up with a few other folks called Maverick Games. Let me bring to you guys today Mr. Benjamin Penrose. Thank you so much for joining me today, brother. It has been quite a wild discussion we were having a little bit ago back in the what people call the green room. But
yeah.
But how you doing, man? Go on ahead and say hello.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, no, it's I'm doing great. We did have a pretty good chat in the before bit, the green room. Looking forward to chatting to you about games. Really, I mean, it's one of my favorite subjects for obvious reasons.
Oh,
Be weird
yeah.
if it wasn't. So yeah, really looking forward to talking to you.
I don't know what we'd talk about if you weren't in the gaming and you were on this podcast right now. I think it'd be a little bit different. But what I like to do at the beginning of every single episode of this show is I like to have the guests let everybody know where they can find you, whether it's on a gaming console or social media or whatever. I mean,
Sure,
you,
yeah.
specifically a freaking development studio, which is awesome. And continue.
Yeah, no. So, thanks very much. Yeah, we've got everything, all the bits that you would expect from a studio, right? So people can follow us at our website. So we've got a website which is www.maverick-games.com, and then you can also find us on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook for anybody who's on Facebook. We're all over the place. So anywhere you sort of generally hang out on social media, we have a presence.
And it's a mighty fresh presence as of right now, correct?
Yes.
Tell me just a little bit about like what got you guys like together to band up and say, hey, we're starting a studio, you know?
So yeah, great question. So a lot of us have worked with each other before. So there's I mean, I for those who don't know the history, so a lot of us worked together at a little studio called Playground Games, known for known for that lesser known racing game, Forza Horizon, and obviously they're working on a Fable project at the moment. So I worked with a bunch of the guys at Maverick at Playground over the course of about 10 years or so. So I personally joined Playground. It was my first industry job. I joined there as a concept artist back in 2011, something like that. 2011, which feels like a lifetime ago now. And it was an absolutely incredible experience. We all had an absolute blast. I learned so much, and I was really lucky to learn from a lot of very talented people at that studio who really knew what they were doing, already masters of their craft, to be honest. And I sort of came along for the ride and just tried to absorb as much as I could while I was there. And yeah, made a bunch of really great friends, and those friends are now, I'm super lucky to say that those friends are now people that I'm I'm working on producing this or setting up this brand new studio in Maverick Games, and I think we've all basically gone through a similar journey, right? We worked for a long time on the Forza Horizon franchise. In my case, right from the very first iteration, and it was an amazing project. As I said, we learned a lot. As you sort of get towards the latter half of working on, the fourth, fifth version of something, inevitably if you've got to the fifth version of something, it means you're doing something right and you're making something special. But generally, what tends to happen, and I think this is true for all games, across the board, publishers, they'll go, okay, well, there's a formula here that clearly works. Let's maybe not break that formula. So you tend to get slightly more conservative as things track along and as things become more and more successful. And that's that's not a criticism at all from me. That's just the reality, and it makes a lot of sense. And I think for us, we missed the chance to go and take a few more risks that perhaps just wouldn't be appropriate on that project anymore. So for us, this was a chance to go and do something brand new as an independent studio, and yeah, start exploring some of those crazy ideas that we've all got bubbling up in our brains.
Well, I mean, I tell you what, man, like I asked you when I first asked you, like, I felt like reflecting now on the way I asked you the question. I'm like, man, I kind of asked him in a kind of a downer kind of way, but I asked you earlier before the podcast had started. I was like, yo, you like, do you like opening up a new studio? Like, man, that's crazy. And you were like, yep, it's awesome. It's great. And I'm just like, whoa, like this dude is stoked for what he does. And you were talking about being excited for Mondays, going to work and stuff like that, which is freaking amazing, man. Like, good for you for getting like a passion, a dream of yours. And not only are you working on a dream, but it's like a dream on top of a dream. Because I'm sure at some point your dream was initially to work in games.
Exactly that, yeah.
Check. Yeah. Now it's like your own studio. Check. The next check is like shipping own game. Check. And it's just insane that you got 2 out of 3 of those. And I'm sure there'll be another check after that at some point.
And
you'll make. New goals always happen.
Yeah, and to be quite frank with you, there's a 1,000 checks in between the first 2 as well. Like the first moment I sat in the auditorium for the Microsoft keynote at E3. That was. I remember being at high school and trying to coax a 56k modem into life so that I could download a video from that year's E3, and then all of a sudden I'm there in person. So it's the whole thing's just been a bit of a dream come true, to be honest. So just trying to truck along and keep it going, and making sure that you make the most of it.
No doubt.
And I think you sort of, one of the things I always think about is when you're in that situation, you owe it to yourself to regularly check in and make sure that you've not got to a position where the thing that you spent so long trying to get into, or you wanted to do, is something you still enjoy. I think it's really important that if you're going to invest as much time and effort into a passion, like turning your hobby into a career, you need to make sure that you're always doing it for the right reasons.
Absolutely, man. Well, again, I can't say this enough, but congratulations on getting all
Thanks,
that
man.
stuff.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Because that can't go understated. I've had another previous developer for a Microsoft studio person. I'm not sure if you know him, but I'm sure you've heard of them before. But I had Jerry Hook on here, which he went out and he started his own studio, Jar Sparks. right? With a bunch of people. It's very similar kind of story to what you kind of have going on, like where he worked with a bunch of these different people and he was just like, you know what?
Well,
like,
I think
this stuff is cool, but I want to make something on my own.
Totally. You see it a lot, right? I think it's a natural sort of order of things in a lot of industries, not even just video games, right? But you've got a bunch of people all together creating something, and you make connections and you make strong bonds with those people. And at some point, that group of people, they get to this point where they go, hang on, like maybe we could do this for ourselves,
Right.
And so I think it's a perfectly normal, natural thing, and I think it needs to happen. You want that regular birth of new places, because ultimately that's what grows the industry. That's what creates new opportunities for people who want to get into the industry. So yeah, I think it's a normal thing, and I think it's a great thing for everybody, really.
The
More
actor
games
is now the director.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna pause it on that part of, the new job and stuff that you got, the new titles, and I'm gonna hit the pause button on that because we got some past stuff I want to talk about, because that's more or less the reason I invite people on this show. Which, thank you so much for doing that and coming on the show and having a good time with me this evening. I appreciate it. I know it's much later for you than it currently is for me.
Yeah, but it's fine. It's not too late. It's not too late. Yeah, it's the right side of midnight.
Gotcha. All right. So the question I'm kind of curious about, and I know I've heard this recently on your podcast that you guys have been doing over there at Maverick Games on the new channel that you have on YouTube. Plug.
Like and subscribe, people. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, I put that stuff in the description below. So once you guys check that out, make sure you click the button and then keep clicking. But anyways, what have you been playing as of recently? Go on ahead and let everybody else know.
Well, you already know this because you watched the podcast, which is where we literally talked about this exact same thing. But
right.
Yeah, for me, the way I worded it on the podcast was I've been on a bit of a gaming binge. Because sometimes you do find when you talk to other developers, you ask them what they've been playing, and they'll say, oh, I'm so busy with life, kids, work, haven't had much chance to play. So that that happens occasionally. But I've really sort of been diving into a bunch of stuff that I've wanted to play for ages. So I actually the new Ragnarok, God of War Ragnarok came out obviously not too long ago, and when it came out, I'd only still played maybe the first quarter of the first game. Not because I wasn't enjoying it. It was just one of those things where obviously something got in the way and I just didn't pick it back up. So I was like, I need to play that new game, but I'm not going to play that new game until I have played through the first. So I rinsed the first game on like easy mode just so I could get the story, and then I was set up to play the second and loved every single second of it. It was such a great experience. From a visual point of view, so my background is art, and also as a developer, just had a massive level of appreciation for the level of the scale of the effort in that game is just absolutely astonishing. Every inch of it is just bloody beautiful. So it was one of those gaming experiences where I'm trying to play the game, but I'm also being constantly distracted by how pretty everything looks. I think there was one moment where you're in like a little like a raft going through a cave on like a little a waterway, and I actually audibly gasped. Like I saw something, I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they've done that." But yeah, so smashed all the way through both of those games, which do you know what? If nobody's played a God of War, I recommend that as a sort of back-to-back experience. It was quite intense in an enjoyable way. But other than that, I've been playing.
That is a lot of content, though.
So it's a lot of content, yeah. And to be fair, I did sort of bust my way through the golden thread. There's still an absolute ton of content in there that I should probably go back and check out. But
like the Valkyries and all that stuff.
You've got it, yeah. I made the mistake in the in Ragnarok of coming across one of those sort of end game bosses and confused it for Golden Line thread content, and I'm there going, how the hell am I ever going to get past this point? This guy's so solid. And then, and then once I'd finally beaten the guy, I was like, I didn't actually have to do that yet, did I? That was something I could have done once I'd finished the main campaign. But never
there
mind.
you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah,
I know what you're talking about. Those green lock things, right?
You've got it. Yeah, that's it. Yes, that's the one. But yeah, other than God of War, I played through the Sonic Frontiers title that came out fairly recently with my kids. My 5-year-old is obsessed with Sonic. He's currently wearing Sonic pajamas and socks and a hat in bed. And that was really cool. Like, it was at first I wasn't so sure. I was like, I'm going to have to sort of power through this for the sake of my kids because I'm not sure it's my thing. But actually, by the end of it, I'd got completely hooked. And there was multiple times where, I was asking him. I was like, "Hey, should we see if we can get past that next boss in Sonic Frontiers?" And then a bunch of other stuff. So, is it Shredder's Revenge, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game? I've been playing a bit of that. The new Dead Space. I kind of want to get back into. It's a massive game, so I probably won't. But I'm really tempted after having conversations with our production director at Maverick to replay through Red Dead Redemption 2. Absolutely loved that experience. I
remember him talking about the balloon.
Yeah. Yeah, the most cuttable mission ever. It's just, I think the thing that maybe we didn't get a good chance at talking through on that was that from a game developer's point of view, that mission is just the technical achievement associated with just this one mission, which is it's the only time you go in that high in that game and get that sort of view of the entire world. But there must have been so much custom tech involved in making that a thing that they could have done. It's a real testament to the Rockstar guys. The way they put games together, it's like no expense spared. Absolutely everything is their whole backlog is just basically, we'll do it. What are we going to cut? Nothing. It's just a real treat to play any of their games for that reason. I think they're one of those. They're an example of a studio that I think, even if you are working in the industry and you're sort of privy to some of the things that some of the corners you might have to cut occasionally, or some of the compromises you have to make. When you play their games, or at least for me, when I play their games, I just don't see any of it. It feels like such a premium experience. I'm regularly there sitting going, how the heck have they pulled this off? So it's still got the mystery. Basically, there's no part of me that's going, oh, that's how they did that. That's how they've done that. It's just real sorcery, real digital sorcery. Those games.
It made me crack up when Mike said, we all know what happens when you get too high in Forza. And I was like, oh, you didn't have to bring that up.
Yeah, no comment on that one.
Funny.
I mean, it's true for
He's
so
mad
many.
honest.
One of the I've worked on a few different games where ultimately somebody's brought up a question around, are we going to be able to fly in this game? And that's the point at which you'll have a good chunk of the engineering team going, oh no, you can't do that. Think of how much information we'll have to have streaming in, or the field of view is going to be massive, and we'll have to draw all of these objects, and we won't be able to do it. So it's. Yeah, like high vantage points and big vistas with lots of content visible. It's always an engineer's nightmare scenario, I think, quite often. Or maybe it's a challenge to be relished. That's probably the way to look at it.
Man, oh man, I tell you, I can keep going left, but I better get to my questions that I have written down here, because I can just keep going and going and going, and we'll never get to these things. But anyways, what I need to know now, which is a question I love asking most episodes, is just like, why the heck gaming is so important to you? And the way I want to lead into that question is, like, earlier, before the show, I had asked you like, yo, what was like the first console that you ever had readily
Yeah.
available? And without hesitation, you were like, NES. NES
Yeah.
is it. Let's talk about that a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your
Yeah.
experience in getting into the NES, because we're talking way before, like, I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but this is before uh Mr. Penrose anything thought about being developed in developing or anything like that. This is just a
Oh
kid
yeah.
wanting to wants to try something new, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was 5. Um, and I didn't even know what it was. You know, it was something my dad bought as a birthday present. So yeah, I was saying to you before, when I was a kid, when I was 5, my folks moved us out to Spain because my dad had a job out there, and but back then there were cable TV and stuff really wasn't that much of a thing. So if you wanted to watch TV, you either needed to learn how to speak Spanish, or you wouldn't know what was going on. So I think it was almost like my dad's way of trying to make up for the fact that he'd taken me to a place where I didn't understand any of the TV. And as a 5-year-old, you know how important TV is, right? So I think he had a friend at work who had one, and he sort of showed it to him, and he's like, "Oh, that'd be perfect for my kid," you know. So he got me a NES to cheer me up or keep me happy or occupied or keep me quiet, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, that was the first time, and that was there was that moment which I'm in control of something on my TV screen, which it sounds like a really sort of flippant, like obvious thing now, but then like it was a genuine novelty. It was like, oh my god, like I'm actually controlling what is on my TV screen.
Right.
And yeah, that was I've got amazing memories of hiding behind pillows, watching my dad complete Super Mario Brothers 2 on the NES, getting to like the final boss with one life left, and it was like proper toe
Man.
curling anxiety. Like, come on, Dad, you can do it, you can do it. He did. The
Good.
ending, spoilers,
Were
not worth it. The
controllers
ending,
thrown?
yeah, a couple of times.
That's
But yeah,
fantastic.
that obsession, basically, that was the beginning of it, and ever since I've just been anything I could get my hands on. Actually, one of the things that I sort of got a hold of just after having a NES was my dad again had for work had got like a work PC that he'd brought home with him, and this it was one of those moments where you realize how much work was done in the average office environment back then. But I learned how to search the DOS sort of prompt. You do a directory search and you'd find all the files and executables on the hard disk, and I'd basically just go through the list and look for things that sounded like they were video games. So you'd see like deathrace.exe, and you're like, okay, well, let's run that and see what it is. And sure enough, it would be some sort of crazy MS-DOS game that somebody at the office had probably installed behind their boss's back or something. But I was just, that was a real sort of magic time for me, because it was a bit like this sort of treasure trove of stuff that I just would go into and search for, and found all sorts of stuff.
That's super random.
Yeah.
But so you used to fiddle around a little bit with the computer.
Yeah.
You played some NES. That's where you actually got to kind of dip your toe in and see what gaming was like at that time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when did you find yourself actually getting like kind of submerged in? Would you say it was within that console generation, or was it like the next one after? Like, what was like kind of the trophy of like, I am a gamer kind of feeling?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the console for me that feels the most special and has the most memories attached to it was an N64. That was so I told somebody about this at work today, and they were a little bit concerned, but I remember when that came out in the UK, it was like a special price when it was launched, and it was £100. just for the console. So it was like £30 cheaper than PlayStation 1, which had been out for a while. So it felt
Games were
like
more
a really
expensive though.
Oh, they really were, and that was the point, right? So I had a birthday and I saved up some money, and I had £100 exactly, and so I bought the console, but I didn't have enough money for a game, so I then had to wait as a kid until the Christmas after the birthday before I could get it. So I had this console sat underneath my TV with nothing to play on it for like a couple of months.
That's super sad. Oh,
it's super. Yeah, maybe it is a bit super sad. But I tell you what, when I got that copy of Star Fox 64 of that Christmas, it made it all worth it. Because oh man, what a game! What a game that was. Rumble
Star
Pack.
Fox 64. Oh man, so your controller was a little weighted.
Oh yeah. Or as they called it in the European region, it was Lilac Wars, obviously, not Star Fox 64. No idea why they changed the names. Actually,
What?
They did. Yeah.
It was called what again? What'd you call it?
It was called Lilac Wars over here.
Lilac Wars?
Yeah.
Wow. I would have never thought of that. I thought it was just Star Fox.
Not as catchy as Star Fox 64 for sure.
That's weird. Okay. So that was a big deal. I actually would have thought you would have said like Mario 64 was the first thing you got, but you got Star Fox instead.
No, do you know what? I don't think I ever bought my own copy of Mario 64 for the N64. Yeah. That's weird, isn't it? That is weird.
It is.
Star Fox was the first title I picked up, and of course, like there was that Christmas when Ocarina of Time dropped, and it just blew everybody's minds clear out of their skulls. Like that's one of those gaming moments in my life that I'll just never forget. That could have been the one where it was like, okay, I'm in this for life now. Just an absolute. I mean, I read every magazine article front to back about that game, and you talk with your mates at school about all this stuff that you hadn't actually read, but you'd made up, but you were spinning tall tales to each other and just basically getting each other even more excited than you already were.
Yeah.
And it was a rare example of a game that dropped that actually lived up to the hype, right? I'll never forget that moment. Yeah, I'll never forget that moment where you played through that game and you got that third stone, and you go to the Temple of Time and you're like, oh man, I've rinsed through this game really quick. I don't want it to end. And then you realize you're only a quarter of the way through the game, and you have that whole time jump sequence. And
I ain't gonna try to break your heart, but I'm not the biggest Zelda fan out there.
Oh, what?
I'm not. I'm just not trying to just say, oh yeah, everything. I'm just keeping it like, I don't know, but like, hey, that game by itself, I mean, it doesn't matter what I think, because it's known to be the greatest game of all time to a lot of people.
It has been said, yeah. It still plays pretty well now as well, I will say. Like, I mean, it's it's definitely aged, but I managed to play through that game again last year with my 5-year-old son.
My goodness.
And he loved it. So
savage, savage you got there. That's awesome. That you're running through some of those games. But let's go back to some of that time period of gaming. So we're talking 90s right now, right?
Yeah, that would have been 99, wouldn't it, that year? I think. Pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure. Christmas of 98.
Yeah. It was just right around that time period. But like, what I'm wondering is between that NES and the 64, was there any room for Sega, or was it all Nintendo?
Yeah. No, I was a Mega Drive guy. So I never had a Super Nintendo. I was a Mega Drive guy. So yeah, Sonic and Knuckles actually was the go-to Sonic game for me. Absolutely loved me a bit of Sonic and Knuckles. But yeah, the Mega Drive was a permanent fixture in the under the TV for many years.
Yes. Now
Until
we're
it was
talking. I
toppled
love
by
me
the
some.
mighty N64.
Oh, come on. I mean, you didn't have to say that. But yeah, I mean, the 64 was fantastic though. I remember I had a PlayStation in my household. The cousin had the 64. So whenever I would go over there for the weekends, it was fantastic. What was it? I liked like Wave Race was super duper dope
Great
back
game.
then to me. Mario 64, obviously. WrestleMania was really cool. Super Smash Brothers, No Mercy, and WCW versus NWO. Like I loved all of those games, man. I was a big fan of wrestling back in that time period as well. But moving from the 64, like you would consider yourself a gamer at that time point, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was well and
Heavy.
truly hooked by that point. Yeah.
How long until you seen yourself with a PlayStation from that point?
Oh,
Because
that
obviously,
was PS2, man. So yeah, that was
so no PS1.
No PS1. I was an N64 guy, mainly because I always wanted a PlayStation. I just couldn't afford one back then.
Sure.
And then
There's a one console kind of time period, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You had to make a pretty big decision. But yeah, no. The next generation for me was PlayStation 2. So I think all those years of having an N64 and not having a PlayStation had a bit of epic FOMO going on when you'd again be at school and you'd have your mates talking about Metal Gear Solid like until the cows came home, and you just and there was just the thing that the N64 could never do, right, was those big long form storytelling type experiences that you could do with the PlayStation because you had the disc format and you could fit all the FMVs on there and all the dialogue tracks and all that sort of stuff. And I think I missed the opportunity to play through Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII and the Metal Gear Solids and just those really sort of cinematic dialogue heavy experiences that you just couldn't do on an N64. So when the PlayStation 2 came around, it was like my chance to not miss out that time around.
In that you did not. I see. So so what were some of the biggest titles that you just had to play once you got that PlayStation 2? Because I'm assuming you were still younger then, so you probably maybe did you get it at launch?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah. I got it. It was a big deal because they were so hard to get hold of. I don't know if it was the same in the US, but in the UK, so this is how difficult it was to get hold of them. I managed to get one, and when they handed it to me over the counter, they actually wrapped it up in a black bin bag so that when we left the store, it didn't look like we'd just come out of game because they were such hot property that they were worried about you being robbed on your way back to the car.
It felt like that this generation picking up my Series X and picking up my PS5. I was nervous going back out to my car because I was just, shoot, you work on these games, so you already know how like sought after the Series X, at the time the Series S even, and the PS5 and GPUs. Those people were literally making front pages on the news for getting robbed, getting shot, all kinds of stuff. And I got both my Series X and PS5. I was super lucky. I got them both on launch day.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I was sweating bullets leaving Target.
I can imagine.
I was like, I got about 200 steps to my car. Let's get there and get on the highway and gun it.
Yeah, and hope nobody's watched me get in. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
I covered my joint with a coat. I covered it with a coat, and I was like, no one needs to know. So I was just like how you felt, where they're like, I got to put this in a black bag. Same situation. What's up, John, in the chat? He says, sup, guys. But anyways, continuing on. Yeah. Go on ahead. Tell that story. So the PlayStation 2.
PlayStation 2, the first game I picked up with that was Tekken Tag Tournament. which was
Ooh,
awesome.
it was an
Such a
awesome
great
game.
game. Yeah, there was a video game store, like a really little independent one that had opened up in the village that I lived in, which was a big deal because we basically had like a fish and chip shop, a pub, a library, and that was about it. So the fact there was a video game store that opened up down the road was like, and they had a demo.
That's insane for a small town like that.
Yeah, it was. It was really unusual. But they had a demo version of Tekken Tag Tournament when the PS2 was being launched before they'd sort of been released. So me and a couple of the guys that used to live next to each other, we just basically camp out in their shop and just play a ton of that. So it was, yeah, that was. I mean, it was such a great version of Tekken. Like it still is. It's still a really awesome version of that game, to be honest. I kind of miss the versions of Tekken that they used to produce on their own proprietary engines. Like I've never been as much of a fan since they switched to the Unreal.
You know what I miss in
version.
Tekken? I miss freaking the side scroller beat 'em up, like what is it called?
Yeah.
Like the Streets of Rage kind of thing that they used to have for Tekken. And at the end you had to fight like Brian. And it was like that thing was insane. I thought that side scroller was so cool. You pick up turkey or chicken or something like that. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, they do a crazy story, don't they? I played through the story mode of 7 actually a couple of weeks ago, and it is just absolutely insane. It's like listening to this bizarre narrative that's being woven together over multiple versions of that game, and it's like I have no idea what's going on. Who's this guy now? Why is he so muscly if he's just a reporter? Like he's not fighting anybody. Does he need to have forearms that size? Like,
they have some wild characters.
They do, yeah. And then the art style as well is just like all over the place. Like 1 minute it's a 2D like anime thing, and the next it's like some sort of photo bashed thing with a bit of animation. The next it's like CGI, high end pre-rendered, and then it's like in-game stuff. And it's like it's just an absolute assault in terms of sensory overload. That game.
I bet for you, great. Especially since you work on games, and you had talked about this on your guys' podcast. You guys had like a whole topic pretty much about like how, and we talked about this just a little bit earlier in this podcast about how you guys look at games a little bit differently because you actually take part in building games. So as we were talking about with the balloon thing with Red Dead earlier, you're just like, you just look at stuff differently.
Yeah, and it's in some ways it's the one downside, right? I'm not going to complain because I get to do my dream job, but the one thing that I think you lose a little bit is you lose some of that sense of magic that you had before you entered the industry, just because you know how things are done, or typically how they're done. So yeah, you do find it's almost like you automatically go into QA mode. So you'll be playing a game and you'll go, oh, hang on a second, like is that? And then you'll sort of walk back a couple of steps, walk forward, and you'll notice something like popping in and out, and you'll go, oh, I forgot to set the draw distance on that asset correctly, and it's
it sounds like X-ray vision where you look over and you're like, ooh, I like that what I see, and then you look over and you're like, ah, damn it, this thing ruined it. like the imagination it just kind of ruined it a little bit. Like I can't just not see that, I see it.
Yeah. and actually I think it's a testament to a great game when they manage to get you past those moments. Actually, Dead Space is one of them. Like that, the atmosphere in that game. I don't know if you've tried the remake, but
I've tried it. It's insane.
I loved the original. I remember when it came out, it was like my game of the year. And I'm not even a horror fan, to be honest, but I just thought it was just
me either, bud.
Insanely good. Perfect balance of terrifying and action. Like it was for me, like I could never do a Silent Hill or even a Resident Evil, to be honest. It was too much. But that game, like, it was just on the edge, and it was enough that I could just sort of keep going and make my way all the way to the end of it. But the new
combat makes it so interesting. The combat just makes it so the stomping, just like the suit and just like the heaviness of the game just makes you like, I gotta see what's behind that door. Like it gives you that feeling.
It elevates everything beyond like game assets, right? It's a real place. You're there, and you're in it, and so it's one of those games where you come away from it and the next day you'll be thinking about poor old Isaac stuck on the Ishimura, and you've got to you owe it to him to plow through the next couple of chapters to get him out of that place.
They did a good job so far that I've played. I've only played the first couple hours of the new one, but I did beat the previous one. So going through the entire game with a no talking protagonist, and then literally opening the game with his helmet off, and he's talking.
Bold move, right?
Like, I felt like, oh, I gotta watch my football coach go into this. Like, that's the way I felt like seeing this, because he just looks like a John. He just looks like a regular dude. He puts on a helmet and he has a gun, and he's just like, this is terrible, but I gotta do it.
yeah. I always prefer the setups where they're just a regular dude. It's like the it's the Gordon Freeman effect, right? It's just from Half-Life. He's just a regular dude with the glasses, thrust into extraordinary circumstances. You can't beat it. It's great. It's such a good setup.
Absolutely. So, man, like I said, I tend to ask questions that get me so far off of what I was originally talking about. Because we were talking about the PlayStation 2, and here we are talking about this.
Dead Space.
Here we are talking about Dead Space. This happens to me all the time, so you don't feel bad, Ben, but I am going to have to slap my hand a little bit and say, stay on topic. All right, so anyways, what I really want to know, continuing on, after the PlayStation 2, now you get like some of them cinematic games in your system. Like you played some Nintendo for quite some time. Even some Sega had some awesome times with that. But now it's just like, man, I'm hearing all the stuff that a cartridge couldn't give me before. I'm able to have these stories where they're literally talking to me in the game. And like, this is insane. I can catch up on some of the cool, crazy stuff that's been happening that I missed out on by not having the PlayStation last time. Now we're getting into like, okay, I tried out PlayStation 2. This is awesome. Did you go into the GameCube or the Xbox at that time, or were you just on that PlayStation?
I was, so that, if you could ever describe me as a, console fanboy, it would have been at that point in my life, and it was Sony all the way. I was very much a PlayStation person by that point. So yeah, moved straight on from the PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 3. Didn't pick up an Xbox, actually.
Not even a 360.
No, actually never. No, I did own a 360 actually, but I didn't pick up a 360 until I started working at Playground Games.
Wow.
So it would have been 2011. I picked up a 360. So it was actually not too far away from the sort of the end of its reign, if you like. I remember I picked that up, and to be fair, it was, there were loads of games that I really wanted to give a go. And I remember thinking, okay, well, I'm working for a studio now that's producing a game for Microsoft, so let's get with the program. Let's see what's going on in this space. So I picked up a 360, and the first thing I did was buy every version of Mass Effect, every iteration, because that was, as a Sony guy, that was one of those games that you're always pining after, right? And I love a sci-fi. So picked that up, and I remember my art manager at the time, who was the guy that hired me there, and he saw the games I'd picked up, and he was like, "Christ, Ben, you're gonna be at that for a while. That's gonna keep you going for a good couple of months." And it did, and it was a absolutely amazing experience. But yeah, like. So I had that for a little while, but actually it wasn't long until the next gen stuff was coming out.
So by the time you kind of got Xbox, it was closer towards the end of that cycle, and you were heading into the Xbox One generation, and this is while you're at Playground.
Yeah. So that was, that's one of those, you're talking about those check box moments, right? So I actually was lucky enough to be sat in a room at that studio listening to one of the guys over at Microsoft, flown over from Redmond, actually talking to us about the box before it had been released, and talking about the tech specs and what it was going to be capable of, getting us all excited about it. And that was a crazy moment, because I'm like, oh my god, at that point there were still articles being pumped on to the internet, sort of speculating about how powerful it was going to be, and what it was going to look like, even. And yeah, I've ended up with a genuine sneak peek with some pictures of it and like a hardware specification that's been broken down. So yeah, that was a super exciting moment actually for me. It was one of those surreal moments where I was like, I'm on the inside now. This is crazy.
Right. Which brings me to kind of my next question, like being inside of the business now, like did you have any kind of like thought process of like this? I got like there's the PlayStation 4 here, and there's these specs, and then there's this. I'm used to playing, PlayStation for a while, but I just got into this Xbox, and this is pretty cool. Was there any kind of like hesitation on either one, or were you, I mean, obviously you're going to play the Xbox because that's where you're working and that's where you're doing and stuff, but did you like run out and get a PlayStation as well, and you're like, I gotta play both of them now because they're both good, in my opinion?
There was a little bit of a delay for me getting a PS4. So I actually picked up the Xbox One before the PS4. And to be honest, at that point, maybe not even because I was working on it. I think so. It was a big change in my life in the sense that for the first time since I'd graduated from university, I actually had a steady job. So when I graduated, it was right when the world economy for the thousandth time had exploded, and there was a lot of unemployment over in the UK. And so if you'd have left university with an illustration degree, which is what I had, you either decided to do something that was completely outside of what you just studied to do, or maybe you signed on to unemployment or something. I actually busked for a little bit. I used to take my guitar out on the streets and sing for cash, and then also basically just I used to have like this suitcase that I'd got, like an old suitcase that fit a hand-me-down laptop from my dad, and I used to go just walk around the local businesses in the area that I lived, and just sold out to anybody who would have me. If anybody wanted a website made, or they needed something designing or illustrating or painting, paint my dog, yeah, sure, no problem. So I'd sort of gone through this period where I'd had an amazing time and learnt loads of stuff, and I'd been able to maintain making a career from what I loved doing, which was artwork. But I'd never had a really stable job until the point that I'd entered the games industry, where I was getting a regular paycheck and it wasn't self-employed type stuff. So I suddenly felt like actually I could invest in both consoles, right? It's like, one console household up until that point. That was the moment where it changed for me. So yeah, I had bought myself the Xbox first, and then the PS4 second, and had a blast basically dancing between both of them. Obviously, I guess the interesting part is I had that inside scoop as to what was actually like powering the Xbox, and I had knowledge of what it was capable of based off of the games that we were developing for it. Didn't have that information for the PS4. And so it wasn't even like I could imagine, or maybe you could kind of, but it was, it felt like a very separate universe because we were a Microsoft exclusive studio.
Gotcha. So you had said something just moments ago about kind of a little bit of your history before you got into like the building, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to go back to that and touch upon that before we go any further with like the Xbox One or like the Series S or X or PlayStation or whatever. Like before we go any further with any of those video games, what I'm wondering, because like I said, this show is mainly about the history of the person within gaming, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
I want to know, like, when did Benjamin or Ben, whichever one you appreciate being called?
Either's fine. Ben's fine.
Okay. So when did Ben come to a conclusion that, like, yo, game art is what I'm looking to do? Because as I had said earlier, you at some point the thought process is, I just want to work in games.
Yeah.
But how did you kind of solidify where you're going to be in games? Or was that kind of just tossed, like, this is your role and you made the best of it and kept climbing the proverbial ladder? Like, how did that kind of work?
It was a really weird journey, actually. So when obviously I was obsessed with games from an early age, I was also totally obsessed with art from an early age. You know, like double art lessons at school for me were like the best thing ever. So they've always been the two sort of big passions in my life. And so, you know, I was talking to you about that time where I used to search the DOS directory for executables that sounded like they were video games on my dad's computer. Actually, it went back when I was doing that. I found a program that I ran, and I've basically I discovered that they'd installed on this machine was like an AutoCAD interior design previewer. So if anybody's like familiar with things like Google SketchUp or anything, you know, those sort of architectural previs packages that people use now to imagine buildings that they're going to put in the middle of a city center, it was like a really ancient version of that. You know, there was no global illumination, there were no shadows, it was just like really rough polygons and high-level textures and things. But there was, you know, you could arrange a couch in a room. It was like almost like a really crappy version of The Sims. But one of the things that I found out was that in this program, you didn't have to like push around all these like models of couches and things. You could actually generate squares and triangles and circles and things as primitive shapes. And so then I was like, oh, okay. So I reckon I don't have to necessarily build a house interior. I reckon I could build a TIE fighter in this thing. And how cool would that be? So I'm there like basically maneuvering in this really terrible UI and this pretty awful program, these boxes around and coloring them and stuff, and basically creating Star Wars ships and versions of Optimus Prime and stuff. And I you know, it was a pretty weird thing to like. I'm pretty sure nobody was doing that with that program. You know, it was basically designed for people to do office layouts and stuff. And this was before, you know, I knew what 3D Studio Max was or any of the sort of great programs that your average game developer uses to produce assets. But that, you know, unbeknownst to me, that was almost like sowing the seed for a passion in 3D art or game art. And then from there, I did discover things like 3ds Max and Maya, or back in the day, actually, there was a program called Rhino 3D, which you could get a free trial of. Which that was something I grabbed.
That sounded like there's a promo.
And it was a NURBS modeler, actually. It wasn't even polygon based. It was NURBS, for anybody who understands the difference. And I used to just model Pokemon characters, and I'd have like a little wallet type thing, and I'd print them off on bits of paper on my home printer, and I'd keep them as a little collection, you know, and I'd take them into school and I'd be like, hey, check this out. I made this 3D render of Jigglypuff, and my mates would be like, that's really cool, you did that on a computer? And I'd be like, yeah, be impressed. And
look at my art.
And that was back when, you know, I was still in like early days of high school, so I'd have been like 13 years old, you know. And then as I sort of went through university, got to university, I studied visual communication. There weren't really very many games courses, definitely no game art courses, I wouldn't have thought. Maybe I'm wrong, there might have been a few. But I basically got onto a Viscom course, which, you know, 99% of the students on that course would be people trying to end up becoming editorial illustrators for magazines or newspapers or book cover artists, or lots of print media stuff. And then I sort of rocked up on the third year, and I was like, do you know what? I'm going to do this illustration thing, but I think I want to try and tailor a portfolio so that I could get into video games and become a concept artist. So I was like, I can illustrate. That's my thing. I love it. I know that there's this thing called concept art in the video game space, and perhaps I can try and weave my skill set to suit that type of thing. So I basically powered through my final year of university, just binging as much as I could on tools and techniques that people used in the industry at that stage to create concept work. And I made a ton of mistakes, and there was loads of stuff that I did wrong, but through a lot of persistence and stubbornness, I managed to get something together that got the attention of a film guy, actually. So it was a small independent film studio in my local city where I'd been to university, and he used to make short CGI movies, and we did a short movie on the life history of George Best, who is a famous man.
Just cut again. Nope. I'll call you again real quick. No worries. That kind of stuff happens. So just one moment. Those of you that are watching, we will be right back. Welcome to the Behind Them Sticks podcast, brought to you by TSWS Gaming.
Come and talk to me, Lennard Ray. That's your name. Come and talk to me. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby. Listen, I'm just saying we can rule the world, just me and you. If you could play it, won't you take the chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you.
Hello. Can you hear me? You can't hear me now, can you? You can. I just can't hear you now. Oh man. Should we try one more time? I'll leave and I'll come back. See if that works. 1 second. Okay.
I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby. Listen, I'm just saying we can rule the world, just me and you. If you could play it, won't you take the chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk, yeah. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Lady, you so far ahead of these others, just like a ship on the horizon. Picking up on your vibe, signal stronger than Verizon. All the thoughts that I've been contemplating ain't no.
Sorry about that. Where was I? Oh, the film stuff. So I basically met this guy who wanted to do all these short movies, and so I went and worked with him for a while, and it was really cool. Like he sort of, I'd been doing a lot of 2D stuff, despite the fact that I'd messed about with 3D work when I was younger. But he sort of introduced me to more modern tools and techniques and stuff, and really set me up actually in a lot of ways. He was a great guy, and we made some of these cool animations and used to take them to like film festivals and things. And off the back of that, I just ended up meeting more and more people. But they were all in the film TV space, so there were people who were doing shorts for like kids TV or advertising spots for product commercials on TV and stuff. And as much as it was great, and I was making some money from it, which was awesome, I knew that it wasn't what I really wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be in games. So I said to the guy, I was like, I really appreciate everything that you've done, and I really love working with you and the other guys that I've met, but I'm gonna take a bit of time and just refactor my portfolio and tailor it to the industry that I really want to get into. And he was like, oh man, you want to go work in games? You're just a massive nerd. And I was like, well, look, this is where my passion lies, so I'm going to go chase it. So I basically spent the following summer sat in my flat by myself, half dressed, just plowing away, creating new bits of artwork every day. I'd basically look at my portfolio and I'd go, well, I haven't got this, or I haven't got anything like that, and I know that's something that somebody might appreciate, so I'll try it out. And yeah, so I over the course of a couple of months, totally refreshed my portfolio with all the stuff that I'd learned from working with these cool people, and then proceeded to blanket bomb the internet with applications. Anybody in any corner of the games industry that had a job advert up, I was like, let me in, to the point where a studio called Blitz Games, who were based in Leamington, same town as Playground, they actually told me at one point, they sent me an email saying, could you not apply for a job with us for at least another 2 months, because you keep applying, we keep saying no.
Damn.
Like, get the hint, guy.
Oh my God.
And then I got to the point where the portfolio had obviously got good enough that I started to get a bit of traction, and very, very nearly actually ended up working for Rare. Though I had an interview with Rare, and I think if it wasn't for the fact that they had to reduce their headcount, I probably would have got the job. I sort of left that interview with them going, we'll see you next week or something for the job, and then I think they had they had to cut back on stuff. Which was actually, at the time, I was devastated. I was so gutted. But fate works in weird ways, and actually I think it was a month later that the art manager from Playground Games at the time gave me a call, and weirdly it turned out he was a massive Manchester United fan and had seen the film that I'd done with this movie director guy, and was like, we'd really love somebody to come and do some concept work, and we think you could do something great for us. And that was the first Horizon game. And that was my route in, basically.
The first Horizon, the Forza Horizon.
Yes, yeah.
Man.
So my job on that game was I was the sole concept artist for pretty much the entirety of the project. So designing all the stuff for the festival back then, so all the festival structures that you see in that game, all the sort of branding for the festival, all the stuff on the banners and the flags. I hand painted the skybox in that game, so that skybox that you see was a couple of it was probably a month or so actually of work painting that thing, because it was actually there was multiple layers to it. So there was a diffuse layer, and then there was another layer that used to interact with the sun as it came behind the clouds, and all that information was hand painted back then. Things moved on a lot in the subsequent versions. There was no need for a lowly illustrator to paint the clouds afterwards. But I really love playing that game, because I basically, when I boot it up and I look at it, because I was so involved in actually producing art, I see lots of stuff that I literally remember having the files open on my computer and editing the textures for, or saving stuff out. One of the things that I would do towards the end of that project actually was I'm quite a big tennis fan, so I'd have the Wimbledon matches on one of my monitors at work, and then on the other monitor I would have all the files from the game, and I'd basically go through, open up ones, and I'd any that looked a little bit ropey, like they could do a bit of spit and polish to make them even better, I'd basically spend a bit of time trying to work out how to make it look even cooler.
Oh my goodness. That's pretty amazing. I bet that felt nuts.
Yeah.
When you see your product come out. And that's kind of what I want you to describe a little bit. What was it like? Like obviously you had spent all this, actually I'm going to go back just a tad bit further. you've been
Yeah.
working to just get into the industry, right? You built yourself this portfolio, you quit jobs, you've been rejected, you thought you got a job, thumbs up, and
Yeah.
then it was all thumbs down. And you went through the devastation of just I'm like not saying that this was a mindset that you held on to, but I bet somewhere because there's always, you know, that negative cloud somewhere in your head, right?
For sure.
That's saying maybe this is the part where I hit the U-turn, right?
Yeah.
Where did the motivation come from to push forward to the point where you knew when you talked to that? I mean, obviously you talked to that dude. He liked some of your previous work. You got the job. Manchester United, dope, right? Sure. But like, I want you to tell me between those two things, like, where did the acceleration of excitement come in before you actually got the hire?
Yeah, it's a good question. There was that moment actually where I thought I got the job in that Rare and then didn't. That was very close to a U-turn for me. That was pretty close to a maybe I should just try something else. But I think honestly, the thing that probably kept me going was I actually just really enjoyed producing artwork. And I was like, well, do you know what? If I'm going to be producing artwork like this, I might as well be carrying on doing what I'm doing. And, you know, if I get to the point where I feel like I've got some new stuff in here that I think is worth sending out, I'll just send it back out. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, maybe I'd got to the point where I'd maybe thought I'd made peace with the idea that it might never happen. But I never got to the point where I didn't lose the joy for producing artwork. And I think that's probably the thing that saw me through.
And that's when you and then soon after that you got the phone call, or whatnot. Now a few years later, I'm assuming, right? Game you've been working on, Forza, Horizon, finally launching.
Yep.
Where's your head at? Before it even goes on the shelves, you just know it's like ready.
Yeah. It was like magic, basically. The whole lead up, because one of the things that you sort of discover when you start work, especially I think AAA is probably where it happens more often than not, but that whole lead up to the launch of a title, it's not just the fact that it ends up on the shelf and people end up playing it, but there's all this sort of preamble, right? There's the bit where you have a load of press come over to the studio to talk to you and like interview the creators and create magazine articles. There's the E3 reveal. There's the stuff that you show at Gamescom and all those beats, all those PR beats that lead up to it. And they're just so exciting, right? Because it's this moment where you get to see how people are going to react to this baby that you've been working on for 2-3 years. And it's terrifying as much as it's exciting, because it's like, oh god, I hope they like it, because it's one of those things, right, where because you've been working on it every day for that amount of time, you're so close to this thing that quite often the people making the games, they can't tell like if they've got something right or they've got something wrong. Like, it's not until you have an outside opinion come in and play this thing and sort of work out what it's about that you find out whether you've done what you thought you've done. So it's
Someone
a really,
that ain't kissing your butt to try it out.
Exactly, it's a really weird experience, because you sort of have this. It's like you know it inside out, but you also don't know it. You know, it's like a weird contradiction going on there. And I mean, luckily for me, I was working with a great team who really knew what they were doing, and the reception was great. So it was even more fun, because you basically had journalists coming in talking about the game and saying, "This is great, we love it," and you're like, "Yeah, brilliant, amazing." And then, it ends up on the shelf of like game stores, and like still to this day, like I'll see, I remember watching a YouTube video like a year or so ago, and it was some guy going through a thrift store, getting retro games from places, and he came across a copy of the original Horizon game, and he was like, "Oh, this is a really cool game. I'm going to pick this one up." And I'm like, "Ah, that's cool." No, it lives. It lives on. It lives on.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
it's an incredible experience.
so
It's
within that
one of my favorite
emotion,
parts.
so within that emotional time of like, you know, it's it's out or it's on its way to the shelves. Once it actually hit the shelves and the reviews were done,
Mhm.
where were you at?
I mean, it's a really good question. But there's a bunch of things going on, right? One of the things actually that probably is the feeling that you have more than anything, or at least at that for that particular game at that particular time, was it was such a because it was the first one. There was a lot of stuff that was unknown, and there was a lot of really hard graft involved in making it. So actually, that final push towards getting the thing out the door and in a box, it's quite an intense thing. So actually, you have this moment of it's almost like a weird anticlimax thing, right? Because you're running at 1,000 miles an hour, and then it's done and it's out there, and then all of a sudden you've not got this thing that you're waking up super early in the morning. You might go in on the occasional weekend, perhaps back then, um, and and then all of a sudden it's like you're not doing that anymore, and you might be just sort of gearing up, thinking about what's going to happen next. So there's almost like it's like taking stock of where you are, and almost giving yourself a well-deserved break for a little bit, and just trying to relax and enjoy it. Right, you've worked on this thing for ages, you've done a good job, you want to enjoy the fact that people are playing it and having a good time with it. So I think that's kind of where I was. I was a mixture of elated, exhausted, um, and uh, and just very happy. Yeah.
Well, the reception from not only that game but the Horizon games have been
Yeah.
very positive.
Yeah, yeah, it was beyond our wildest dreams, I would say. You know, it was a crazy, crazy journey that project, that franchise has been on.
Absolutely. Well, we do need to keep it moving. So I'm going to now ask something a little bit more current.
Sure.
All right. So now you've been working with Playground for some time. I'm assuming you enjoyed your time there.
Yeah.
But what was it like having to say, you know what, this is great. Once again, you're at this part of the road where you've
Yeah.
done this before with previous jobs, but now you're here
Mhm.
at this one, and this has been a dream for a while. But as dreamers do, they just continue to dream to the. Well, I mean, I'm like, what's the next dream? I already got this one. What's the next
Yeah.
one? Where were you kind of at when you were like, like, this is cool. Do I want to, like, how'd you make the decision, like, between do I want to stay here versus new adventure? Was it something that you got pushed into doing by somebody else, or was it more or less like, I got this great idea, I need to find a few other people that are with me?
Yeah.
Or was it kind of a mixture of a few different things?
It was, yeah. There were a lot of things going on. So by the time, so I should say, I didn't go straight from Playground to Maverick. There was actually an interim studio. So when I'd got to that almost 10-year period at Playground Games, by that point I was their studio art director. So I was overseeing the Forza project and their Fable project. Although I have to say, at the time, the Horizon team was so kick-ass and had so many great people on. I didn't have to get too involved by that point. There was a fabulous art director that I had hired a couple of years ago, who is still there now. Don, great guy, super talented, and yeah, he was just knocking it out the park. So I was spending most of my time actually looking after the Fable project at that point, and I just 10 years felt like a really round number to me at that point, and I was conscious that I had been inside this one very fabulous, awesome studio full of great people. But from being in the industry, getting to go to places like, E3 or GDC and meeting other people and other developers, it becomes really clear really quickly that lots of, all these different studios have completely different ways about going about creating games. The process is totally different. Not just because the games are totally different either, but it's this whole sort of ethos as to how you build something. And I think I just got it in my head that I was like, do you know what? If I feel as passionate about this industry as I do, I kind of owe it to myself to go out and discover how other people do this stuff. I want to see how somebody else goes about solving some of these problems. And so there was an opportunity came up with actually a really good friend of mine and somebody who had worked previously with me at Playground. Came to me and said that there was a Swedish team, a Swedish studio called Shark Mob, which was made up of a few ex-massive developers from Ubisoft who'd set up over in Malmo, and they were looking to open a London-based studio, and they were looking for initial crew of directors to help set everything up and get things going and create a new IP for them in the UK. And I thought, well, this sounds like a really cool opportunity. In London, the big smoke, a bit of a change up from leafy Leamington Spa, which is where Playground is. I would be working with some old friends, old colleagues I really respected, and the scale of the challenge just felt really exciting. This idea of go in, do it from scratch, and it really was from scratch. So there was a couple of us that were there, and some days we'd be in a room putting ideas down on post-it notes and sticking them on the wall. Other days we'd be walking around building sites of places that were going to be renovated at some stage, and they might be fit for a game studio to be situated within. And yeah, over the 2 years that I was there, I saw that studio go from 4 or 5 of us sat in a room just dreaming up ideas to, by the time I left 2 years later, there were 80 people at that studio. We had created a state-of-the-art studio space for the team right on the Strand, right in the middle of London. You could see the Thames, you could see the London Eye and Big Ben and everything from the kitchen windows. And we'd got their new IP projects at a place where people were really excited about it and were looking forward to what it was going to turn into. And it was I learned a lot, and it was a lot of the stuff that I'd just never really been exposed to before, because I'd always been the guy working for the team developing the game, and that was my first taste of setting up a studio. And in some ways it feels like it was the perfect sort of starter experience for what I'm doing now with Maverick, where it's a similar thing, but it's completely a bit of that, but also just some of the boring stuff, right? Like getting an insight as to what's involved with paying the right price for floor space for a studio from a landlord, and all of that sort of stuff, just things that I'd never really had a chance to be involved in before. And so yeah, with Maverick, it's a similar sort of thing, but it's ours. It's we're independent, and it's from scratch. It's a blank sheet of paper. There was nothing that existed beforehand. Yeah.
Okay, so
I can't remember what we were talking about now.
No, I was just wondering what that time was like between getting from Playground to Maverick, but you said there was an in between, and that's where we're at right now.
Sure, yeah.
So that in between. So now that generates a new question as to what was it like going from new studio to here we go again, new studio.
yeah. So, So the adventure with Maverick was one of those things where I knew that at some point I'd love to do what we're doing, which is starting something from scratch. I didn't think that the stars would align as quickly as they did. And
would you still be at the other place if it wasn't for?
Yeah, Absolutely, yeah. Great team, and I've got a lot of love for everything that is happening over there. And it was actually it was a really difficult decision in some ways, because I had recruited an art team that I really believed in, and I'd got to know them really well. They'd become friends as much as colleagues, which is what happens when you work with somebody every day. So it was that side of it was tough, but it was the the shape of the opportunity with Maverick was like something that just doesn't happen every day, and I knew it was something that if I didn't go for it, I'd basically regretted it for the rest of my life probably. So I jumped in with both feet.
Okay.
Um,
So jumping into that, what was it like getting everybody together? Like, was it like something that like you were asked if you wanted to be part of, or was it something where it was like you reached out to them? Like, who was the who formulated the plan kind of first to be like, you know what, I'm going after this and I'm hitting up this, that, and the third because they already expressed feelings about this.
yeah, it was pretty organic, to be honest. I think it was just one of those situations where there was a few of us that were good friends. So actually, I live in the same village, a little tiny village, uh, as our executive producer Tom Butcher, who you all know from the podcast, and Fraser Strachan, actually our audio director, who's also on both of the podcasts. He also lives just around the corner from me. And we'll go to the same pub, like, and get a pint every now and again, and we'd dream up cool ideas. And there was this moment where we'd all sort of flirted with the idea for a little bit, and we're like, should we just let's just do it. Let's just do it. And there was enough critical mass. There was enough there was enough of us going, yeah, why not? Actually, why not do it? That it just it just made sense.
I got kind of an interesting question, and this isn't pertaining to anything or anybody in particular, more just kind of a question in general. So, like, obviously, developers move around, they go to different studios all the time.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think there's any kind of do you think there is any kind of weird shift in today where superstar or well-known or people with a large portfolio want to get away from big company? Because it seems like the whole superstar idea of like, this dude's a superstar at Epic or something, or this dude's superstar over at Naughty Dog or whatever. Do you feel like there's a sense of like some sort of like revolution kind of going on within game developers and trying to kind of create their own kind of team instead of working over or under, I should say, working under a large name? Because there has been a lot of people making their own studios lately, or just kind of moving on to something else.
Yeah, it is an interesting time, isn't it, at the moment? I think there's a couple of things. Well, yeah, maybe.
It's innovative, though, as well.
I think it's kind of exciting, right? I think actually this sort of period is something that's been brewing for a little while, and I actually think it's maybe a bit of a side effect of the fact that there's been a lot of consolidation beforehand, right? So you've had a lot of really big publishers buying up at smaller places, which is, again, the sort of natural order of things. But, there's probably some sort of economic reason as to why this happens, or some sort of law that it relates to. But I think when you start to get that mass consolidation underneath a couple of really big names, I think the natural thing then is that you're going to start to see people spin off from that for various reasons. And I think probably the reason quite often is that want for a little bit of independence, so that you're not maybe restricted by some of the things you might be restricted by if you were tied to a big publishing house that had a particular set of way of doing things. You know, when you're independent, you have this really wonderful opportunity to set culture. You know, think what kind of studio do you want to be? Like, how do you want people to be treated? What sort of values are going to be important to you? And yeah, sometimes if you've been absorbed into one of those giant organizations, that's, I'm not saying it's something you can't do, but it's probably something that's slightly more difficult to shape in the sort of the version that you would most like to go after, because there will be so many sort of Hello. Yes.
No, I can hear.
So yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I thought it happened again for a second. Yeah, there's so many sort of restrictions in place sometimes, and I think the other thing that's going on at the moment, right, which maybe is kind of, I think it's unrelated and it's just sort of timing, but with the way you're sort of seeing all these redundancies happening with some of the big studios, you know, the stuff that happened over at Microsoft with 343 and made for really sobering reading, going on LinkedIn, you know, and hearing about people that are having to move on to other stuff because they've been let go. And I think that again, you know, is sort of, well, at the very least, I think it's making me reflect on the situation that I'm in with the rest of the Maverick team, and feeling really lucky and privileged actually to be in a situation where we're small and independent and well funded enough that hopefully we wouldn't be affected by the sorts of things that are happening to some of those giant organizations where they've got massive portfolios, loads of studios, loads of employees, and they're having to make these really difficult decisions. And I think all of it's related at the moment, right? I think we're just at that natural point where we're starting to see these breakaway groups doing something. And I think that side of it's exciting, because I think that's where you're going to start to see fresh ideas, innovation, new IPs coming about. Like, you know, typically if you're a big publisher, you've invested in a franchise, a series, and you might be pumping out version 7, version 8, 10. So the idea of all these new places dotting up and producing new stuff, I think is, yeah, it's really exciting, because I think it means for gamers we're going to start getting our hands on some fresh stuff that we've never seen before, and that's always good.
Okay. Well, just to let you know, you guys, those of you watching and you as well, Ben, we got about 25 minutes left that we're going to be doing. I want to kind of keep this at about 2 hours just to kind of be respectful to your time and also to my time as well. I've been working today a little bit. So I definitely want to make sure I get some time for my wife and my kiddo before it's bedtime for them. But moving forward, so I mean, that's really interesting, being or having that kind of thought process, but also like you're involved, you're part of that, you know, world. So knowing that, you know, like I'm pretty secure because I built like we're building this right now, right? So we have a direction compared to possibly getting that note or that email that, hey,
exactly,
you're cool, but we are no longer in need of your services. Like,
yeah,
that
absolutely.
that had to hit different, especially not only did you like work somewhere and feel, you know, pretty good, but like you moved on from that to go into something else, seeing the ways that something gets built and then being like, I'm down to do that myself. And then while you're building, you're seeing something else kind of falling.
Yeah.
A little bit in like the corner of your eye.
Yeah.
You're just like, what's going on over there? Oh, that's not good. Well, I'm gonna keep building over here. like that had to give you like the sense of
yeah. And I think the great thing about the games industry is that everybody supports each other. You know, it's not there's a lot of camaraderie that goes along, and because it is a small industry, you'll inevitably end up bumping into the same people time and time again, and so I think one of the the thing that's been great to see is that actually when all that bad news did hit, and you saw, old friends and old colleagues being affected by it, within hours, actually, I think I saw somebody, going onto LinkedIn and actually producing a spreadsheet that had, all the details of people that were happy to be put on it with their contact information, and then they'd send it out to all the studios that were hiring at that point, so that they could help people out, if they were in that situation.
It's like a mass application.
Yeah. And I think from our side, as much as we were really grateful that we weren't in that situation, we were thinking, well, maybe this is an opportunity for us to be able to help some of those folks, because there were some great developers affected by that stuff. It wasn't like they were in that situation because they weren't super talented. I mean, you only had to look at some of the games they'd worked on.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh man, I tell you, that's some interesting stuff and a lot of insight on kind of how your life's kind of went throughout these years of being in gaming, from being on the outside looking in, and now you're on the inside kind of looking outside like, but very dope story, and really cool individuals that you get to hang out with on like a regular basis, chop it up. And now you guys have like a podcast studio, and you guys are working every day, and you guys have a lot of ideas. I do want to give you the opportunity, if you would like if you have anything that you wanted to say about Maverick.
Yeah. There's loads I'd like to say about Maverick. You can't shut me up talking about it. So I think the thing that we want to make special about Maverick is, well, there's a number of things, but I think we want to make a studio that isn't just known for producing top quality titles, but is also known for being a great place for developers to work in. There is not so much these days, but I think in the past there was almost a bit of sometimes those things felt slightly mutually exclusive, right? So you'd have the big studios that made great games, but perhaps there were rumors that it was a pretty rough place to work, or there was a lot of crunch, or people went through stuff in order to create those amazing titles. And then there were other places that were known as a really great place to work and had a really great culture, but they weren't necessarily the studios that were known for producing really awesome things. And I think it's maybe a bit reductive, but I think what I'm trying to say is we want to bring those two worlds together. And I think one of the ways in which we're in a good place to be able to do it is the team that we've assembled. So I think, as much as we've been talking about my experience, Maverick is made up of a whole group of people, and they're all amazing game developers. And we've been joined by a bunch of people outside of Playground Games as well. So Harinder, our COO, she was previously at Sega Hardlight in Leamington, and then she moved over to Sumo Digital in Leamington. And one of the things that she has always seemed to have done is build places that end up winning awards for best place to work. And so we've been spending a lot of time with her, downloading her brain and working out what it was that she's done to have such a great sort of track record and success with that sort of thing. I think basically that sort of team profile that we've got at the moment, I think, is set up to do something really special. And I think the other thing that's worth mentioning, which hopefully comes across if you watch the podcast and you sort of dip into some of the social media stuff, is that we want to do things a bit differently to the way a lot of
Okay, yep, same exact thing. Fantastic. All right, so we're back at this part again where I gotta make a phone call. So you guys hang out with me just for a quick second while I get this taken care of. Oh boy. No. This is interesting right now. This is something. This is something. What a way to end my day. I tell you that much. Mm-mm. Nope. Well, there's that. Okay. There he is.
Hello.
Yay.
I can hear you again now.
There we go. Oh my goodness. I didn't realize my camera was on.
Discord, man.
Gotta love it. Discord is I don't know. That's the best. That's the best way I could really put it. Oh my goodness. It went out again. Yeah, I can't hear you again. I just don't know. Right at the tail end. Oh no. Nope. Killer. 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 Oh my goodness. It comes in, goes out, comes right back in again. I just don't know what to do about this.
Hello.
Oh my goodness. It's so
There you go.
inconsistent.
You can hear me now?
Yes, I can. For the moment, I absolutely can. Oh my god. It went away again. Yes, it went away again. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm wondering if it's the microphone or something. I don't know. Because I don't know what's going on. Do. Welcome to the Behind Them Sticks podcast, brought to you by TSWS Game.
Come and talk to me, Lennard Ray. Come on. Come and talk to me. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby. Listen, I'm just saying we can rule the world, just me and you. If you quit playing, won't you take a chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk to me. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Look, see we vibing and you know it's true. Baby, what it do? Do for me and I'ma do for you. No doubt about it. Boosie, I'm a Midwest king, looking for myself a queen. Ready to chase a dream with a dope self-esteem. You finer than all I know, and that's for real. You get to shaking that ass on the floor, and I see what's real. No disrespect, I just tell it like it is. Do you ever want some kids? What your ultimate goals? Maybe I can help with those. The mo was broke when he made you a blessing. You looking like a whole buffet, and I need some seconds. You say you had promiscuous ways, that was back in the day. I'll be alive, I say I did it. That shit was a phase. So baby, take this journey with me. You can pick the time and place. This nigga isn't picky. Smile on your face, I know the deal. Sign and deliver after seal. I can see it in her eyes, this one right here for real. I I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby, listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you if you could play it. Won't you take a chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk, yeah. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Lady, you so far ahead of these others, just like a ship on the horizon. Picking up on your vibe, signal stronger than Verizon. All the thoughts that I've been contemplating, ain't no time for faking or debating. You the one, ain't no mistaking. Look, I see your swag different. Always carry yourself like you ready, you know the mission. I had to know you, I'm tempted. I can see why you timid. Hold up now, baby, listen. Just take that dance with me. I can show you that there's a difference. I'm locked in. I throw away my play ways because you pop in. A shooter always shoot a shot. With you by my side, I guarantee we'll reach the top. I put that on God and then I give you all that I got. So baby, take this journey with me. You can pick the time and place. This nigga isn't picky. Smile on your face, I know the deal. Sign and deliver after seal. I can see it in her eyes. This one right here for me. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby. Listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you if you could play it. Won't you take a chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk, yeah. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk to me.
Welcome to the Behind Them Sticks podcast, brought to you by TSWS Game.
Come and talk to me. Lennard Ray. Come on. Come and talk to me. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby. Listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you if you could play it. Won't you take a chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk to me. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Look, see we vibing and you know it's true. Baby, what it do? Do for me and I'ma do for you. No doubt about it. Boosie, I'm a Midwest king, looking for myself a queen. Ready to chase a dream with a dope self-esteem. You find it in all I know, and that's for real. You get to shaking that ass on the floor, and I see what's real. No disrespect, I just tell it like it is. Do you ever want some kids? What your ultimate goals? Maybe I can help with those. The mo was broke when he made you a blessing. You looking like a whole buffet, and I need some seconds. You say you had promiscuous ways, that was back in the day. I'll be alive, I say I did it. That shit was a phase. So baby, take this journey with me. You can pick the time and place. This nigga isn't picky. Smile on your face, I know the deal. Sign and deliver after seal. I can see it in her eyes. This one right here for real. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby. Listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you if you could play it. Won't you take a chance?
That made a difference. So
It might, but but we're back again for hopefully for hopefully the rest of the little bit. We only have a few questions really to get through. Yeah. I can't remember where we were at though.
We're talking about Maverick. The last thing that I was going to say was that hopefully if people sort of see what we're trying to do with the podcast and with the social media stuff, is that we're trying to be a little bit more different to the way a lot of other studios do things, in that we want to be a little bit more transparent. The industry sometimes can be a bit of a black box, and it's really difficult to understand what's going on or why people do things or why certain decisions are made. And I think we want to bring people along for the journey, and actually give them a bit of a view into what this whole game dev stuff's like, because we don't really understand why there should be such a sort of veil of secrecy around things.
That brings, I mean that's fantastic that you said that, because I've thought about like how kind of awkward but interesting but hard to tap into like that gaming is. Like for me to like ask somebody to even be on the show or something like that, it's super nerve-wracking, which is, you know, kind of comes with the territory. They got a lot of stuff, you know, going on, and they got a lot of stuff they can't talk about. So sure, for the guest, the clarity of what the heck am I doing or who the heck am I talking to is very vital. But at the same time, for somebody like me that doesn't want to like disrespect or like go out of like line, I'm just genuinely interested, and I want like I've always I'm very much like you in the same like regard that I've always kind of wanted to be in the business. You found a way to do it. I just kept doing, you know, regular jobs, figuring things out pretty much until I got into the position that I'm in now, where it's like, oh, I have time now to do stuff. I have, you know, I got enough of my life together that I can afford to take a risk. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's where I'm currently at. But like, I just like am very intrigued that there is a whole development team that's out here trying to bring more clarity for something that I'm trying to chip away at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's kind of, I think that's one of the reasons we're doing it, right? I'm hoping that we can blow the doors off of a lot of, you know, questions that people have had for ages and just generally don't get answers to unless they're on the inside.
Because one thing that I hate to cut you off, but one thing that kind of frustrates me a little bit, and I mean, I'm an Xbox fan, and I've seen a lot of different, you know, sides of Xbox mood wise, right? I've seen from the original Xbox, very edgy, like out of pocket edgy. Like to the point where they got themselves in trouble a couple times because of being so dang edgy. To your third party, get whatever you want kind of console, to all in one box, happy, joy, kind of currently where they're at now with the all gaming, but still happy, joy. Everything's like almost too good to be true sometimes, feeling wise, that I get from watching like I watch some of the streams and stuff like that, and it's just like, oh, this dude's too happy. This doesn't feel real. Like I feel like the developer or whatever that they're talking to is being a regular person, but the person presenting me the developer, like they're like wildly eccentric. Like to the point where I'm just like, this is cool, but I'm not really getting the questions or like the
you feel like,
the temperature.
You feel like some of the stuff. Yeah. I know what you're getting at. I think like maybe what you're getting at is sometimes you feel like the stuff you hear is just very scripted.
Yes.
Yeah. Like they're overly rehearsed, maybe.
Scripted to the point where like, turn down the volume just a little bit. I can hear myself coming through.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're doing what you got to do, so I don't blame you. but like scripted to the point where it's just like I'm not hearing like what I feel like I'm hearing isn't real. Like what I want is like kind of what you guys are doing. You guys are just like, you guys had the four of you just sitting there, just chopping it up, talking about regular stuff. You didn't have I mean, like, it's fine to have somebody interview some people, but like the goofiness was out of there. It was just reality that was going on and real thoughts that were, you know, being provoked. And you know what? I liked that, but like that right there was a little weird. Like that's not something I'm used to hearing in like, when I hear developers talk or whatnot. It's usually all gloom. I mean, not gloom, but all happy, and then they're off the screen.
Yeah. I think I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think we're describing the same thing. And that's some of the stuff we want to try and get away with. Be a bit more authentic, basically, and Not that I don't think some of that stuff is authentic, but I know what you're getting at. Like sometimes you feel like you just get this sort of very rehearsed version of stuff, and you hear about the things that they really want you to know about. But perhaps some of the, when you like listen to podcasts or interviews, long form interviews like this, where people just get a chance to meander off on a tangent and talk about something loosely related for a second, like that sort of interaction is just not something you see typically in the industry, and I think that's the sort of thing that we would like to do more of. Just humanize the industry a little bit for people, like if what we do ends up making it slightly less intimidating for a couple of people coming out of university trying to get into the industry, that they feel like they understand things a little bit more, then that's a W for me. Do you know what I mean? Like we've done a good job.
Absolutely. Like, I just like that style. I'm hoping that sticks. You guys don't like turn into something or get bigger, or I hope you guys get bigger. Obviously, I just hope like you don't get so big that you just don't want to talk anymore,
Well,
or let anybody bring you down.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. You can let me know if you think it ever starts to happen. You can come and give us a reality check.
I'll just be in your DMs like, what the hell are you doing? No, I'm just kidding. No, man, but man, it's been a pleasure learning all this stuff. It's really cool to hear. My buddy Matt likes games in the chat. He said it's cool to hear developers talk normally. It was what was so cool about the early Bungie like videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or Vidocs is what he's saying, like the video documentaries that they had for that stuff. So, I mean, I love that kind of stuff where it's just somebody kind of coming out of nowhere and just saying what they believe, and there's not really a script. They're just speaking from the heart, and that's why I like to have this podcast and whatnot. But continuing forward, because we got, I'd say, a little over 10 minutes that I want to try to make up a little bit. So just to get through some of these questions, I want to know, like, obviously you're a game developer, so you see games a little bit differently than maybe myself, but still you're a gamer. I got to ask, like, what game do you kind of steer away, or type of genre do you kind of just not love particularly? Like if you walked into Best Buy and everything, or like a game store and everything was sorted out by genres, what's the genre that you're probably going to walk to last or not even look at?
Probably. Oh, it's a good question. I think I've never been a huge sports fan.
That's two in a row. It's 2 podcasts in a row that said sports. No.
Well, but it's only specific. Like there are certain sports. Like I told you, I'm a big tennis fan, right? So there are certain sports I'm into, but I've never. And I actually enjoy a good game of FIFA every now and again. But it's just I don't think I've ever actually bought a FIFA game. Ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ever, he said. Man, that's wild. I'm not. I mean, damn.
And then of course you've got those sort of like American specific ones like Madden, right? I'm very aware of Madden, but I've never played it.
You've never played any Madden?
No, never played a Madden. I don't even know
impressive.
how. I don't even know how that game operates. I don't know the rules. So if I watched it on TV
of NFL football or of American football, you don't know the rules of it.
Yeah, no clue.
That's fun. that would be something weird if you lived here. It'd be like, you don't know football?
Yeah.
How do you not know football?
So actually, one of the times I came over, it was actually for work. It was Horizon 2, and we were doing some scans of some models for one of the games, and I ended up in a hotel lobby hanging out with this really cool old couple, like this old married couple, like in their like 70s. Like the wife, like she fell asleep at some point on the couch, and the guy was basically describing the rules of ice hockey to me, because I'd never. That's it. That's another one of those sports you just don't get a lot of over in the UK, right? So that was the first time I'd ever really been properly introduced to ice hockey.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were grown.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just
That would have been
wild.
2014.
My goodness, my man. Gotta put you on, man. I gotta put you on a beer in a football game, man. I gotta do it. Oh man, I swear, if you're ever at one of these game of like E3s or something like that.
Well, there's one coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm at GDC in a couple of weeks in San Francisco. So maybe I'll have to.
I'm planning, or I'm not planning. I'm going to this coming E3. I don't know if you guys are going to be out there or whatnot, but I swear, I don't care if I gotta buy a beer, shove it in my pocket, and give it to you, and turn on my phone and be like, "This is football." You see that right there? That's a 40-yard pass. Like, I don't know.
But the question is, if it's football, why so much of the handling with the hands?
Oh my goodness! All right, we're done. We're done here. We're done. We're done talking about that. I'll see you. I will see you, sir. But anyways, getting on to it. I want to know the best 3 games that you played in the last year. It didn't have to come out last year, but just like the last 365 days, your favorite 3 games of that time period.
Oof. Oh man, I'm searching my memory now. I definitely put God of War in there. Are we talking the year just gone?
Like I said, the game didn't have to come out last year. It's just the last year of
played over last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I definitely stick God of War in there. I actually had I played through Ace Combat 7, and it's a freaking great game. Such a cool game. Had a blast with that as well. And
I'm not surprised. I have a friend that couldn't stop playing that game for a while.
Oh, it's in. I actually described it to somebody as almost like if the Forza Horizon team were going to go make a combat flight sim, I reckon it would end up a bit like Ace Combat. What
sounds clean.
Oh, so actually, I recently just played through all of Breath of the Wild again. So it wasn't the first time I'd done it, but it was
that again.
I did it mainly to do it with my kid, actually, my son, because he's into a bit of Zelda. And my God, that game is incredible. I know you're not a Zelda fan, but Jesus, that game is just absolutely insane.
I know. I feel like I should go get my wife. Hey, you talking about Zelda again? Y'all can have that conversation. Because y'all would have a lot more to talk about than me, because she knows. She made me buy the NES version, the Super Nintendo. She got me on the I still need to get the GameCube, but for some reason I have a Wii version. I don't even have a Wii. I'm telling you, really? She just wants to have these games, and I don't know what she plans on doing with them, but I'm hoping playing them one day is
at some point. Playing them,
that'd be fantastic, because she just likes it, I guess. But anyways, so those were 2 games. What was the third?
The third. I've been playing so much stuff recently. I'm trying to work out what I'd call out as a favorite. I did have a really good time, actually, with oh God, what was it called? Oh no, the name of it's like completely escaped me.
What kind of game is it?
It was the game that the Ghibli team got involved with. Ni no Kuni? Is it Ni no Kuni?
Ni no Kuni. Yeah, my buddy calls it Noonie Kuni, but Ni no Kuni, yeah, Ni no Kuni. How they have the remastered that just came back.
Yeah. So I had a bit of a blast with that, and really got into it. So yeah, I'd probably put that one up there as one that's been great. I mean, to be honest, I think the past couple of years there's been a lot of stuff come out, but there's not much that I would sort of hold up as like really like jaw-dropping moments. I think a lot of it was probably because of the pandemic. I think a lot of studios were really struggling to get games out there, so you kind of were almost a little bit forced to dip back into back catalogs of stuff. So yeah, actually, I've been doing loads of retro gaming, man. Like I've got my wife is like despairing because I've basically got every single. I mean, old days of only being able to have one console. I've now like I'm making up for it. I've got like every generation of every console hooked up to one TV. Like if you go behind that thing, the wiring is just like it's a fire hazard.
Yeah, right there. Just you can see it right here. I just have everything, and my wiring is probably just as bad as yours. Where I have like I have the Sega Tower of Power up there. You can see that up top. That thing by itself has like 8 wires.
Yeah,
just that dang
you
console.
You got to get all the right adapters for modern TVs and stuff, and
you got to get the right adapter for the Sega CD to plug in to get the highs, because all it comes with is the lows. You have to get the highs from the Genesis console to plug into the CD, and then you have to get that transfer piece. But there's also a transfer piece for the 32X to go into the Genesis as well, and then all three 32X, Genesis, and the freaking Sega CD, they all have their own power cable.
Yeah.
Talk about a freaking mess. But
hey, do you know what?
A beautiful
Actually,
mess.
I've just realized the actual answer to your question. I just, for some reason, I'd forgotten about it, but I realized last Christmas that I had managed to basically avoid every Halo release ever. Like I'd never really played any of them, and so I went and got the Master Chief Collection and played through every single one in order, back to back, and it wasn't one game, but that was a hell of an experience. Like that was a really cool. It was it was a ride.
Did you bounce back and forth between the old Halo and the new Halo as you were playing it?
So do you know? Yeah, I played
with the back button.
Playing the first one. Yeah, because you could hit that button right, and it would up res and down res the visuals. I started playing it, and I remember thinking, "Oh, I wonder what the remastered visuals look like." So I pressed the button, and I was already in the remastered visuals, and it down resed it to and I was like, "Oh my god, this is what the original looked like." I was like, "Oh my god." But I actually forced myself to play the first game with the OG graphics.
Oh man!
So I was just like, I'm going to be a purist for this one. I couldn't manage it for the second. I had to use the remastered overlay.
But the remaster for the second, so good.
It is. It's amazing.
It's insane. Yeah. Like if you go like during the like big budget cutscenes, like if you switch back, you're just like, oh. What? Like that turned into that? Like it's almost like unbelievable. Like all the character models completely changed. Where they're standing changed a little bit. They're in the same room, but the room looks just different.
Yeah. Well, Blur did all the cutscenes for them, right?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. But that's that's amazing.
Crazy good studio. Yeah. It's I mean, like, to be honest, technically that's a pretty incredible achievement. I have no idea how they managed to get that feature working where you could just press that button and it was like
that kind of, I mean, to give somebody that opportunity freely like that is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really cool, and that's like the only game that I can recollect that does that.
Mm-hmm.
Could be wrong. I don't know. But moving on, what's your most excited game that's coming? So not like pretty much from now on to the future, whatever. What's the most exciting game that you're looking forward to that you're not working on?
I know it's only just been announced, and it's probably going to be be a while, but I love anything that Hideo Kojima touches. Like, absolutely obsessed with Zone of the Enders, Metal Gear. Enjoyed Death Stranding a ton, and
It's a good
looking
game.
at the reveal for the new one, it looks pretty sweet. So pretty jazzed for that. You won't be surprised to know that obviously I'm pretty excited about that next Zelda game,
Mhm.
Tears of the Kingdom, which
Of
hopefully
course.
shouldn't be too far away.
Are you buying the coloring book with it?
Almost certainly.
He said,
Come
"I'm
on.
going all the way in for it."
You're talking to the art guy here. I'll color that bad boy in while I'm playing it. No problem.
And you're like,
On
"Son, get your own."
I thought the new Final Fantasy also looks pretty interesting.
16.
I haven't
Yep.
actually I haven't played a mainstream Final Fantasy for a long time, but that one's definitely piqued my interest. Like, I really love that blend of it's got a bit of a Game of Thrones vibe about it, right? And I kind of like that sort of medieval European twist. I'm kind of into that, so that's definitely on the list. Qu- There's loads of stuff, man. I could keep going forever. Ken
There's a lot of
Levine's new
games.
thing looks really interesting as well. I can't remember what that's called, but so that sort of it's got that same sort of Bioshock aesthetic that his titles always have.
Oh, it's on the tip of my head because it was shown off at the Game Awards, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, dang it, I can't remember the name of that game. That's gonna bother me until I look it up. I'll look it up later though. But you just got done talking
Judas.
about Judas. There you go. Nailed it.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, Judas. So, but now this kind of brings me on to the next question, which is one of my favorite ones. But like, what's your favorite studio? And what game best represents it? So obviously not the studio that you work for. Like outside of that.
I think. So I read this question in the list that you sent me, and I was mulling it over. So that it was a toss up for me between. I mean, I know Kojima is no longer. It's no longer the same studio. It's a different thing now. But it was between him. But I think actually I'm going to go for the Team Ico guys. So they famously, produced Ico, then The Last Guardian. Sorry, no, Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, and then The Last Guardian. Which
That's an interesting pick.
I don't know if you played those games, but for me, they were just like they were games that I played. Ico was a game that I played where it was one of those ones that I was like, I need to get involved making these things because it was just such an amazing experience. I mean, at the time, like, so brave as well. Like, no soundtrack. Imagine that. Imagine a game that you play where the only audio really is like the sound of wind and birds chirping. It was a mad concept. But yeah, love that studio. Love those games. I think they're just. I've got a bit of a thing for games that like feel like a really nicely self-contained experience. There's always this big push now for games to be so full of content that you can sort of go off in various different directions and spend hours just chasing one.
The previous interview I had today, the guy said, I asked him, which is a question I'll be asking you here in just a moment, but I asked him what frustrates him about gaming. And he said, too many open world games. I need more linear experiences.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're saying something very similar to where it's like, stop kind of giving me all these shovel missions and just let me have a beginning and maybe an end.
I don't mind open world. Like, I mean, Shadow of the Colossus, I think you'd probably describe as an open world game, but it's still it's self-contained enough in terms of the thread that you follow that it still feels really scripted. I think I agree with that previous person's opinion in the sense that I think there's maybe dare I say it, the Ubisoft model of producing an open world and just littering the map with loads of stuff that you need to go do to tick off. It's almost like gaming via spreadsheet. Done that, done that, done that, done that.
Right.
And you wait until you fill it. I think the Team Ico guys, they're clearly trying to create like a more. It's an experience wrapped around a narrative, and it's delivered in only a way that a video game can really deliver that type of thing. I think that's what makes their stuff really exciting.
Man, that's an interesting answer. Something that I have yet to hear. So that was pretty dope. But now I've seen you answer half of this question on this on the show the other day, but I gotta ask you to see if you're gonna keep the same energy or if you're gonna go in a different direction.
All right.
But I gotta know, if you were to revive 2 games. Yeah, you know what I'm saying now. If you were to revive 2 games, further back than last generation, so it has to be at least like 360, PS3, and backwards. If you were to revive 2 games, what would they be to give that, triple A, quadruple A, ridiculous, stupid budget to?
So yeah, my answer is the same as the podcast, because I wasn't joking when I said I've spent a weird amount of time thinking about it. So my first choice would be Banjo-Kazooie, the original Banjo-Kazooie on the N64. It is, I think, similar to the way I was describing those Team Ico titles. Like, it's such a well-paced, like perfect sort of perfectly formed thing. There's no waste. There's no extra fluff that you're never going to care about. It's just this really great, well-crafted, perfectly proportioned experience. And I think it was a really interesting game world sort of concept when it originally came out. This idea that you have this sort of overworld with all these sort of hubs and spokes sort of spinning off of it, and inspired by Mario 64, no doubt, but it really felt like it was like a huge step up in terms of the quality of the delivery and presentation. And I think what Rare did really well at that point, and actually like they did better than any other studio, I think, at that for that particular console, was they had a way of producing game art for that machine that just made their stuff look leagues ahead of everybody else's. And I've got the inside baseball on a couple of the tricks that they used to use. Like, they used to do some really interesting things with like vertex shading to fake shadows and things, and just really, really interesting sort of approach to dealing with the limitations of that original piece of hardware. And for Banjo, the other thing is, if I did it, I wouldn't do the remake. It would definitely be a remaster. So I wouldn't want to go and mess with the structure of the levels or any of that stuff. I'd want to try and keep all of that physicality as it was. But I think I would just look to really elevate, up-res not just take the original textures and, up-res them with a generic AI, but actually try and honor that artistry that was embedded in the original, but sort of take it to a level that suits a modern audience. So maybe get rid of a few of those janky polygonal edges that the N64 was known for, and a few of those muddy low-res textures, and just bring it up to something special.
But now let me give you a weird scenario. What if Microsoft hit you with or didn't hit you, but like put out a message saying, we want somebody to work on Banjo-Kazooie, but a remake? What would happen knowing that this isn't a remaster? They're asking you to ground up it. Would you pass, or would you get your palms sweaty?
It would still be a sweaty palm situation for sure. But I would, I think I'd basically spend a long time trying to convince them not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, there's some magic in there, guys. Keep the magic. Don't lose it by doing something silly, by thinking you can do better now and make the whole thing a different shape, design, whatever. Yeah, that's what I would do.
So you would just you would
strong arm them.
He said, "No, we're doing a remaster."
Yeah. Right,
Okay,
let's sit down. Serious talk for a second.
Okay.
Let me tell you why this is almost a great idea, but also a terrible idea.
Fair enough. And
second game, very luxurious of you to give me 2 games. Would also be from N64 era, and that would be Ocarina of Time. I think that game.
I should have seen that coming.
It's begging. It's begging for a remake or remaster.
I mean, I think there are millions of people that agree with you on that one. Like, not even kidding. Like I said, it doesn't matter what I think. Because it sure doesn't.
That's how we come back and get all the people that weren't into it the last time and get them hooked. See, this is how we suck you in.
Man, you're trying to poison me, sir. All right. Well, anyways, we hit the last 2 questions now, and let's go on ahead and get through those so we can do some outros, and you can get to bed and I can get to my family. We can go do our things. But anyways, the first one is, what frustrates you in gaming? And this could be any direction. So when it comes to development or community or games in general or style, what what for you, Ben, frustrates you?
For me, the biggest frustrations are that sometimes it's not always the case, but you can quite often bump into a mentality within the games industry which sort of goes something like, we do it this way because we've always done it this way, without necessarily questioning whether actually it's time to shake things up a little bit. And I think some of that comes from the days where the industry was even more of a black box than it is now. So a lot of people in very senior positions have been doing it for a very long time, and they're working with other people that they've been working with for a very long time. So it's almost like the fresh blood that has been sort of coming into the industry recently, all the great grads with great ideas, they're still making their way up the sort of chains, right, of various places. And I just think there's sometimes the industry can be a bit too self-referential, right? It's, if you're going to go make a brand new game, a brand new IP, quite often you get asked questions like, so what other games is this one going to be like? You know, it's going to be like, you know, I'm going to take this from that game, I'm going to take this from that game, and this from that game, and that's my pitch for this one. And you know, like it's a way, but I can't imagine that the guys over at Team Ico would do things like that, right? In fact, I'm sure I heard somewhere that their method is something like Ueda, who's their studio head, comes back with a watercolor painting based off of a dream he had, and then he goes, let's make a game based on this, right? And that sounds mad, but kind of unique, and that's why their games feel unique,
because no one else is going to do that.
There's just a lot of rinse and repeat formulaic stuff out there, right? I always groan a little bit when I play a game and I can tell what the game is going to do next before it's done it, because you know that's the playbook. You know, do you know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you're saying. I want to be surprised. You're just saying take a chance more often, or just be willing to do that. Like, don't get too stuck into your ways. And we're seeing some of that kind of happen in certain areas. I mean, you just got done talking a little bit about Ubisoft, and I mean, you don't have to be in the game industry at all to know that Ubisoft has been doing the same rinse and repeat stuff for quite some time, to where it's just like, all right, if it's an Ubisoft game, I'm pretty sure it's going to be way too big. It's going to have way too many missions.
There'll be some towers to climb.
Yeah, there'll be some places to climb and silly things hidden away that you have to get to, like, level up or do something or whatever. Or, oh, you get the golden box. Like, How many times have that been thought of? Oh, you got the exotic weapon. That's cool. But yeah, I really would like to see that as well, though. Like some more, just different stuff. I mean, even like it doesn't all have to be completely different either. Just sometimes it's like, can you sharpen it up a little bit? Can you make it just a little bit different? Dude, John in the chat just a little bit ago was asking, how are y'all enjoying Atomic Heart? Have you played that game at all?
No, I haven't actually.
One of the things I really respect about that game, although it's sometimes kind of slow, is that they changed the way that you loot stuff in there. So instead of opening up every single drawer or, breaking every single thing, it's just simply like you're using your hand and all the drawers are like flying open and it's like sucking everything into your tool that you're using to get stuff. Just little things like that. Little things to separate yourself to know that this is that game's thing. Although you're doing the same exact, you're looting just like you would in any other game. But the action to do it is Atomic Heart. It's not the same thing as, oh man, I'm playing God of War and I punch the top of the chest. Well, then I go and play Evil West, and it's literally the exact same thing.
Exact same.
And it's like, wait a second. And there's health on the ground, the orbs, and it's like, wait a second. Am I playing God of War or am I playing Evil West? And you can say the same thing about what is it called? The game where you're like martial art wolves or whatever. I forgot what it was called. Godfall. Very similar. Godfall, like literally the health orb looks exactly like God of War. The walls, the art style in the game. It's God of War, but I'm a wolf. And I know a little bit of martial arts. Like, not saying that the game isn't fun. The game can be fantastic. Hell, Assassin's Creed is fantastic to a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
although a lot of it's rinse and repeat, but it's just like, you got to do something to look to set yourself apart.
To be honest, like it's not even that the stuff necessarily annoys me. I think it's just that I really love being surprised by games, and it's just like I'd love for it to happen more often than it does sometimes.
Well, I tell you what, I'm really excited to see what you guys have cooking over there within either the next year or two or however long. I mean, take your time, make sure you guys, cross your T's and dot your I's and whatnot. But I know I'm excited to have this conversation with you now while you're very early in like starting it up, just to see how you guys grow. It'll be very interesting. And I can tell you that I'm very happy to have you on here today. Thank you so much for that. But one of the exiting questions I got to ask you is dream come true in gaming. What is that? And yes, you can include yourself or your studio or whatever you want in this part of the question. Dream come true. Yeah, what's the dream come true in gaming for you?
Gaming. The dream right now is that the team at Maverick produce something absolutely stellar, and we get to release it and people love it. That would be a dream come true for me at the moment. That's the current dream that we're chasing.
The current dream is releasing something from your own studio.
Yeah.
And it'll kick ass. Yes. I like it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. I love it. Before I do the sign out, I want you to go on ahead and plug yourself, plug your studio, say whatever you got to say, and I'll get us up out of here. Okay.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure. It's been really good chatting to you. I love talking about games. So it's been awesome. I would just say to anybody who's been interested by any of the stuff that I've been talking about, if you want to follow what we're doing at Maverick, our website is maverick-games.com, and also definitely feel free to follow us on our YouTube channel for loads of podcasts that we're going to be doing over the next couple of years as we build the studio and develop the game. And we're hoping that is going to basically be where we carry on having conversations like the ones we've been having, that are going to be really open, honest, and hopefully a good insight as to how this industry operates, and maybe get to hear some stuff that you wouldn't hear in other places.
Well, I can tell you right now, the clarity has been awesome, and having you here today is just shows the amount of clarity that you guys are willing to give out into the community, which is super duper dope. And those of you that are watching today, thank you so much. I know I've done a lot of podcasts today for this channel. Thank you guys that were willing to come out, check out this episode as well, following right after my last one. Thank you so much, Ben, for taking the time out of your day or out of your evening. Let's get that right. Out of your evening to be able to share some time and share your story about how you got into gaming. I apologize to everybody for the technical difficulties, but that is Discord. Discord is... it's always a couple steps from breaking. So, it just kind of is what it is, but I'm happy for those of you that stuck around and hung out with us throughout the time. All of Ben's stuff when it comes to like Maverick Games or like his app for his Twitter and whatnot is down in the description. Make sure you guys click that. Now is best, but whenever you got the chance, absolutely go down there and hit that button. That'd be super duper dope. Help these guys grow. They probably don't need a whole lot of help. The game will do the talking at some point, but definitely check out what they've been up to. They have a pretty interesting podcast that they do. How often do you guys do that? Because there is quite the time between episode 1 and episode 2.
Yeah, we had episode 2 recorded for a little while. It's
episode 0 and episode 1, right?
Well, yeah. So the next episode is due very, very soon, actually. So we're hoping to do them on a fairly regular basis. Maybe once a month, something like that, or once every 2 weeks.
Super nice. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for showing up. But the last thing I'm going to ask you to do real quick, Ben, is describe gaming using only 3 words.
The best time.
Simple, and I love it. I will see you guys. I'll see you guys in the chat tomorrow. Me, Loke, Cozy Beluga, and Matt Likes Games are going to be doing Bullsitting, our usual show every Friday, where we just talk about what's happening in gaming and give you guys our perspectives. Thank you so much for everybody showing up. Y'all have a wonderful rest of the day. And as I always say at the end of every podcast, y'all make sure to keep it gaming or keep it moving. See you later. Welcome to the Behind Them Sticks podcast, brought to you by TSWS Game.
Come and talk to me, Lennard Ray. Come on. Come and talk to me. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby. Listen, I'm just saying we can rule the world, just me and you. If you quit playing, won't you take a chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk to me. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Look, see we vibing and you know it's true. Baby, what it do? Do for me and I'ma do for you. No doubt about it, boo. See, I'm a Midwest king, looking for myself a queen. Ready to chase a dream with a dope self-esteem. You find it in all I know, and that's for real. You get to shaking that ass on the floor and I see what's real. No disrespect, I just tell it like it is. Do you ever want some kids? What your ultimate goals? Maybe I can help with those. The mo was broke when he made you a blessing. You looking like a whole buffet and I need some seconds. You say you had promiscuous ways, that was back in the day.